So yeah, my name is Marcella Sunshine. I'm almost 25 in August. And yeah, I grew up here in BC, but my family's from Fishing Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan. So I don't know if you ever heard about like the 60s scoop or anything like that, but I'm a Ojibwe, I'm a Anishinaabe. And so our family back, it must have been like, 60s or 70s, we ended up out here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I think it might have been the 80s even, because, like when Canada was being created and, like settler arrival, it changed everything. And so like my family's history, we're originally from over the Great Lakes area, and then we migrated up and so on and so forth. So long story short, me and my family, my brother ended up in the foster system right after our birth mother gave birth to us. And she was 14 years old when she had me, and then 15 when she had my brother. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Like back to back.
Back to back, boom, boom. And me and my brother, we're tight now, but we were put into the foster system right at birth, and then we actually didn't see our birth mother again until I was 22. So
Really?
yeah, we were disconnected, and so we were put into the foster system. Unfortunately, like you, we were put into a house. I don't know if you're in the foster system, but we were in a house that was full of neglect, and ours was very abusive, so a lot of violence. But, every time people ask me about my story, I really don't focus too much on that. I don't avoid it, but I also don't put all my energy into it, because that's just kind of like the starting blocks to like the rest of my life, which was I think has been pretty phenomenal. So like I started running away from my house, because who's gonna sit there? For me, I don't want to sit there and be hit or abused or talked down to. So I think it was like 11 or 12 was the first time I ran away from home, and then I just never went back.
So where did you go?
I was homeless. So I was in Abbotsford, and I was down hanging out near a place called Mill Lake Park.
Okay.
And so all these kids in Abbotsford who either came from problematic homes or were in drug use or whatever kind of went to this park. We were skipping school. So like through those years I had been expelled, and honestly some nights I even slept in a newspaper box out there. In the winter. But most nights I would get a place. One of my friends would let me over, their parents would let me over. But again, it was all kind of sketchy. And then when I was 15 years old, I went on what's called a youth agreement. So here in BC, if you're in the foster system, or if you come from the foster system, if your situation is dire enough and you don't actually have adult supports in your life, the last result that they'll give a young person who's in care is a youth agreement. And that's where they'll give you $1,200 a month until your 19th birthday, and pretty much say, good luck, try not to fall off the wagon. And so that's what actually paid for my rent starting when I was 15. So I worked full time. I had that little subsidy that helped pay for my apartment.
Okay.
And then I just tried to get through those years. So those teenage years, I kind of just hustled through, and drug use, homelessness, assault, all sorts of things happened. But a lot of beautiful things happened too. Through my homeless years, I got connected to an organization called Matsqui Abbotsford Impact Society, which that was when I was 14 or 15 years old. Am I telling too much story right now?
No, God, I love
That's
it.
when I was 14 or 15 years old, and it's a nonprofit. And what they did is they got young people together who were entangled in substance use, and they said, pretty much whatever you dream of doing, let's make it happen. Anything you want to see in the world, any way you want to see the world get better, any way you want to heal the world, we want to bring your dreams to life. And that's what happened for me. And so for me, like one of the things that was really important was like showing people, as a young person who came from a lot of domestic violence and childhood abuse, it was important for me to show social workers and those alike who are working with young people in care, how do you actually treat someone who's been beat up like 12 years of their life? How do you actually approach that type of person? How do you like approach them with love and compassion and care, so they're set up for a successful future too, whatever that looks like for them? So over the course of 10 years, because I'm 25 now, I've been with this organization, and I went from being a youth elder support to a co-executive director. And and it's a substance use counseling center for youth. And so the cool thing is I'm not so much a counselor, but I do run off side projects. And so this is my pride and joy project is called Viper, and this tattoo.
That's the snake inspiration.
It's the snake inspiration. Okay. This tattoo represents kind of the concept that a lot of Indigenous kids, like they're taken out of their home, or because of Western society as a whole, capitalism through and through, we've disconnected our people and our future generations so much from those traditional ways of life. And in a way, we're forced to. We're forced to, because of our 9-to-5 jobs, there's survival, there's crown land. Like if you go, you know what I mean? Like there's so much wrong with how things are right now. And so like part of Viper is we hire young Indigenous youth, and we teach them how to connect back to their traditional territories, to their traditional teachings, to their families. I mean, and then my favorite thing, and it's actually next weekend, we're hosting a powwow at the last residential school to close in British Columbia. And
really?
It's our 4th year, and the best thing about it, that entire powwow, which gets about 8,000 people over the weekend, is all run by youth.
Really?
Youth who've either been disconnected from their culture, youth who grew up in their culture. It's all run by Indigenous youth, and we teach them how to do it. And we showcase to them, like, you can do anything you possibly dream of. So me, I'm a huge dreamer. I'm a big manifester.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I have like total awesome energy and like power, and like I love to see in my life, like the thing that makes me the most happy is seeing other people living in their power, whatever that is.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be like this amazing, like you're a lawyer or a doctor, which are, you know, respectable. But even if you're at home and you're making art, or like you're doing anything, like as long as you're in your glowing self, like that's my purpose. So that's kind of what I do right now, and I am a big traveler. So the last thing I'll share is I love to powwow. Do you know what a powwow is?
Yeah.
Have you been to one?
I haven't. My dad loves them. I haven't actually been to one.
Your dad loves powwows?
Yeah, so he, long story short, he's a really passionate, like, hunter, fisherman kind of guy.
Wicked.
There's so much of that in Michigan. And as a result, he's been fascinated by, like, native culture, skills, all of this.
He loves it,
we were actually involved in the Great Lakes Primitives group, right?
Ooh.
Which it was probably when I was from around like 9 until 14, and he got in with these guys through like the local rod and gun club. But we'd have like monthly gatherings where it's like half discussion, half like skill sharing, and there's a group of us that went camping for about a week straight on Bois Blanc Island.
Ooh.
Right, it's in between the lower and upper peninsulas of Michigan.
Wicked.
Right next to Mackinac Island, which is the big tourist trap. But Mackinac is for normal people. It's for the muggles, right?
Yeah.
Bois Blanc is where the actual magic happens. And so, like, as a result, I've spent a lot of time, like, carving and flinging atlatls.
Oh,
and at one point I had the long, like, sinew kind of like bola sling I got really good at, and I think that those weeks camping is what really inspired me to keep adventuring, because there was this beautiful moment. I took a kayak by myself at like 12, and I just like start like rowing as hard as I can to get out into the Straits of Mackinac, and there's waves coming in, and like they weren't huge, but to a 12-year-old Greg, these were tidal waves. This was a hurricane.
This was your next big thing.
Exactly, yeah. The big kahuna manifests before me, and as a result, so I had to fight the waves, but I eventually broke through, and the water's crystal clear, and I just remember all these boulders like bigger than our house, like hundreds of yards below me, and seeing fish and just how like turquoise the water is. It got to me right there. I was like, travel the world, see it at all the things.
Yes.
And realize like there's a lot of skills that you can get from a group like that, from a camping trip like that, but it comes from a very well-meaning place that's not as authentic as like the work you're doing, right? This is, frankly, it's a lot of curious white people in Michigan that want to know the native skills and cultures, while our ancestors kind of wiped out yours.
Well, it's different.
The people that actually knew the things that we want to act like we're mastering. Like, I'm sorry, we killed all the masters generations ago.
Well, that's not entirely true. There's lots of people who were killed, but like, believe it or not, and this is the one thing I learned when I reconnected, like Indigenous culture and traditions are actually like still thriving, and they're still very much alive, and like family and like these next generations that are coming up, even though they a lot like exist in such a way that have to coincide with Western society, I'm seeing firsthand, like even through Viper, but beyond that, young Indigenous people are returning to those cultural ways, and they are like doing the research, and there are courses, like there's things that are opening up for people that are teaching. And it kind of reminded me, like your story you were just talking about like you went out there and like you knew like from that point on like you wanted to adventure. That reminded me of one of my stories, which I really like, and that kind of connects to mine because I'm a huge traveler too. And so I think it was when I was 7 or 8 years old, I just gotten done like getting in a really big fight with my adopted parents. They were yelling at me or something. It was getting all abusive. So I remember I took off to go walk our dog, and I went to this little park by my house, and like I was crying and crying and crying, and it was like my heart was so heavy, and I felt so broken. I felt so uncared for, and I just remember thinking I'm supposed to have a bigger family than this. I'm supposed to be in more than this place, because we stayed in that house, in the same house for 12 years. We never left town. It was very like, they always promised to take us out, and we never did anything like that, like ever. And so for me, it's like, as I started to age, I like realized like I actually can take control and go wherever I want. And so it's like, now I do a thing called powwow dance. I'm a fancy dancer, a woman's fancy dancer. So that's with a shawl, and it's pretty beautiful, and there's a whole story to powwow. And powwow is a celebration, it's a connection to like all these people. And my favorite thing, you can travel the powwow highway, the powwow trail, and you can go anywhere on this continent and you'll find a community of people who are putting on a powwow, and their people will feed you, they'll take care of you, they'll tell you their stories, their nation's traditions. Like I think last year I went to New Mexico, California, Alberta, Oregon. I went up and down the coast. And then like it was like in the last 4 weeks I've traveled to a different state or city every week. And then the month before that I was in a different city for 2.5 months.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm like, I love to travel. For me now, if I don't travel, I get really like depressed. Like I get like, because I love to see the world. And my favorite thing about all of it is the people. You learn about different like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of history of humanity when you go to different nations. And general Western society, like they don't even recognize or see how profound and how deep and how alive it still is. That's the thing that trips me out. So
so that's the thing. I have a very, very small, probably kind of mainstream, for the most part, perspective on how Native culture is doing it. And so I've only, up until recently, I've only seen bits and pieces of Ontario and
it was
Quebec.
Scripted like that by general.
And what I've heard in all the media coming out is how much Native cultures can struggle with alcoholism, methamphetamine, and from the few times I've passed through reservations, it seems to resoundingly be the case. Where, all this being said, now I'm in Canada. Yesterday I spent probably 5 or 6 hours at the Anthropology Museum at UBC. I walked in, and like 15 minutes later there's a free tour, so I got in on that. And what I appreciate about Canada, and it's interesting, I really don't want your perspective on this, because some people they call it window dressing. The Canadian government, and I'm assuming the peoples, seem far, far more self-aware and apologetic that, we had the boarding schools?
Yeah, residential schools, 16
Not to mention just the genocide of germs and warfare that hit before.
Right?
I think I heard yesterday, I was watching a YouTube documentary on the exploration and foundation of Vancouver. And before they got into, it was discovered by the English and Spanish, they mentioned when the Spanish first got here, they had arrived right after the smallpox had already decimated like 90% of the community that was living, various tribes, in what's now the Vancouver area. And they estimated there's still 100,000 people left. And that got me thinking, the statistic I've heard is that diseases wiped out 90% of the native population.
It did. It stole the territory,
and
actually.
if there was 100,000 left, that means there's approximately 1 million in the first place.
That's 100% the truth.
And obviously that 10% still had so much of the culture that was left, but then it was that literally the phrase, like, destroy the Indian, save the man?
It's just kill the Indian, save the child. That was from our first ever Prime Minister of Canada, John A. Macdonald. That was his quote. It was to kill the Indian and save the child.
And for how many generations did that happen?
Well, something people don't know is settlers and indigenous people of these territories actually got along for about the first 200 years, 250 years, I think it is.
No, were those settlers or fur trappers? Or all of them?
It was a mix. It was settlers, fur trappers, explorers, adventurers, any terminology. It's people who came from another continent to come here and explore, to claim, to do whatever it is they wanted to do. And the first 200 years actually were in peace. And indigenous people were teaching all the settlers, all the adventurers, all the explorers, whatever you want to call it, how to live on these territories, how to survive through a harsh winter. And of course there was trading that went on. And I want to bring it back because I think
Please.
that's a really important thing to talk about, which you talked about the kind of rampant addictions and suffering of indigenous people. And I'll tell you, like, the thing that I learned, that a video I watched, and it was with Chief Wayne Christian, and he's from a nation out here in British Columbia. He was 24 or 26 years old when he became chief, and he was in a interview with the Minister of Health and Human Resources of Canada here. And between these two, the minister or another person asks, don't you think, with all the alcohol, with all this, with all that, you guys sort of perpetuated it, like you guys sort of brought it upon yourselves and made it worse? And the way Christian said it, or Chief Wayne Christian said it, and it changed my whole perspective forever. Not that it really was that different. He said, imagine coming in to a home community and taking our entire future generation, all of our children, 70% of our population, and putting them in faraway homes where they're getting hurt and starved and abused and forgotten about, and they're torn away from their traditions, and they can't speak their language. What do you think that does to a community? Like your entire future, all the work, all the stories you taught has been taken, and it was dispersed and it was forgotten about. And so now you have all these older folks at that point who didn't have their children to teach. And then those children who ended up in residential schools and foster homes like mine. I was born in 2000 and I still went through a foster home that had rampant abuse. And I still am fixing up the mess from that. Thankfully, I'm alive. Thankfully, I have adult supports who actually wanted to lift me up. But that's not the case for everybody. And so now you have all these kids who went through all these homes where they weren't given that proper, like, cultural, like, mother, father, auntie, uncle, grandma, grandpa, mush 'em, cook 'em, love. They were kind of taught to survive, and then they had their own kids. And when you don't have those role models or that family or that community, and then you have kids and you were ridiculed for any sort of feeling or anything, of course you're not going to be the most set up to parent in a love or patient or kind way. And that's what intergenerational trauma is. But here's the cool thing, we're doing intergenerational healing by doing what we do, and that isn't an easy process. And it's not just meaning don't hit your kids, it means understand shame that you carry is generational. When you have a baby or when you have children and your body carries that trauma while that baby is being built inside of your body, that baby is going to have those things, and they're not going to understand when they're older why they have panic or why certain things hurt or trigger them. They're just going to know that they don't feel okay, and they're going to do what they can do, the things they can get their hands on to heal that. And unfortunately, alcohol and drugs and all that shit is really easy to get your hands onto, but getting your community back isn't. So that's my speech. Deep, huh?
That's fascinating. Yeah. Well, so you did go pretty deep, and that's interesting. So
a lot of it is personal
all this in mind, and that's the only valid experience relevant, right?
Straight up.
So if alcohol and drug abuse is the most accessible way to temporarily negate a tremendous amount of pain coming from the inner trauma, is the only way to break out of that cycle is to do the generational healing.
Of course it is.
To bring the children back into the village
I'll teach you
to be raised. And then if you don't have that inner pain of the trauma being separated, you don't need to medicate to get past it.
Well, the trauma is always going to be here. There's a thing people don't get. They think you work through trauma. You don't work through trauma. You just learn how to deal with it better when it comes up. I'm somebody who I can't handle violence or anger, and when I see it, my nervous system pops off. I get freaked out, but I understand, I can tell myself I'm safe, and I can walk away from those things. Unfortunately, some people, your nervous system takes over to such a degree, you can't even get to that point of knowing you're safe or trusting yourself, because most times you weren't given the opportunity to even showcase what it's like. So that's a really, and I'll tell you a term that we use, because I think this is something that's been relevant in my life. It's called relentless incrementalism. It's kind of a long word, but the concept here is, sure, we can't make systems that are going to magically just fix people and their trauma, because everybody's story is so unique and so complex, and there's not a one book model for it all. But there is relentless incrementalism, which is pretty much, if you take one thing and you just keep pushing it and you keep trying it over and over again, it will do something. And so for us, we put on cultural events, we put out regalia, we put on these powwows, we teach these youth, we take them on learning journeys. It might not be a lot in the grand scheme of things, but I mean, look at ripple effects, look at butterfly effects. It's relentless because we do it every single day. And there's something will come from that. It might not be a lot, but it's something,
So people I think people expect too much when they don't realize all progress is made incrementally.
Yes.
Like you can't reach the top of the pyramid without building the base of it.
And through and through, man. That's totally it.
This notion, a lot of people want to change the world, which is a noble, high ideals manifesting.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to push against that at all, but realize all you can do is change a world, because the world is one person's world at a time. It's your world, it's my world, it's a world of this car going down this road, but there's a lot of traffic here. And like we could try and pontificate if we're some politician, some preacher, some prophet, acting like we know every answer when we just don't.
Yeah.
What we might know is slightly more than the person next to us, and we can share a little piece of information, a puzzle piece, and if they can put it into their incomplete puzzle of life, maybe they can tell, I couldn't tell what the edge of this was until 2 or 3 more pieces dropped in, and now it's a flower.
Yes.
And there's it's easier to piece together the world the more information, the more puzzle pieces we share with each other. Mm-hmm. And when you realize the world's not as big as you think it is. The world is made up of one soul and one human body at a time. And like I heard this from someone talking about giving lectures to a large crowd, and they're trying to give people advice like, how do you deal with the nerves of, like, there's 1,000 people in front of you, don't you freak out with anxiety? And they said no, because you need to realize there's no such thing as a crowd. There's not a 1,000 people entity. There's one person times 1,000. You are talking to one person with 1,000 perspectives, because you look out in the crowd, it's not some amorphous amoeba of humanity.
Right.
It's one ass in one seat, and the same things goes for the either person next to them and the rows in front of and behind them, and it's all one-on-one. It's just doing it at scale, not a higher level, at scale.
You're so awesome, and you remind me of my mentor from that nonprofit of 10 years. He became my, like, I don't want to say caregiver, but mentor.
Yeah.
What he said to me, because we had these conversations when I was really young, and I was really like, there's so much world, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, the thing he said is focus on your sphere of influence. Mm-hmm. And that's like the thing that leads my life. So if I ever think it's too daunting or this, it's just focus on your sphere of influence and just know, like, everyone else is doing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love what you just said.
Thank you. I try. I hope that clicked in to what you're saying.
Of course it did. Oh, of course it did. I'm just gonna,
you never know how much of an impact these events are having until you follow up with people years later.
It's true. Like, the trajectory of people's lives change, you know?
Yes.
So this is the exit, though, that I'm going to be taking, and this is the closest one, I think, for you to keep on your thing, because it's probably right at that one. And I don't want to go, but I have to go, so.
Yeah, fair enough.
So is there a way you want to close that off?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think you gave me and everyone a lot to chew on there.
Oh,
anything else you'd like to say? To any young Native person, especially woman trying to find their way, the little girl you once were, what would you tell them?
Oh, just be brave and take every opportunity you can. That's it.
Amen. It's beautiful.
Wicked. That was so fun.